So we are going to discuss the key components of monitoring and evaluation, which is the causal analysis framework, log frame or logical framework, an indicator matrix, and data collection and analysis plan. So these four key components basically form the foundation upon which the monitoring and evaluation system is built. Okay? So they play a critical role in monitoring and evaluation planning by answering some of the questions. For example, what does the project want to change and how? What are the specific objectives to achieve this change? What are the indicators and how will they measure these indicators? And how will the data be collected and analyzed? So all these four questions comprise of all these four different components. So each and every component is basically answering to those questions. So let's just start from the causal framework analysis. Now, the causal framework analysis seeks to specify what are the major problems and conditions that the project seeks to change. It also focuses on the factors that cause the conditions and the ways to influence the causal factors based on hypothesis of relationship between the causes and likely solutions. Here, you would also need to discuss the interventions to influence the causal factors and the expected change or desired outcomes. So I'm going to show you an example of this, but you need to remember that causal analysis should be based on a careful study of local conditions and available data, as well as consultation with potential beneficiaries, program implementers, other stakeholders, and technical experts. You may also come across to such information which may be available in need assessments, feasibility studies, existing feasibility studies, some rapid appraisals, community mapping, and the SWOT analysis. So the assumptions underlying the causal analysis can be assessed by involving potential beneficiaries, program managers, and implementers, as well as other stakeholders and technical experts. Now, many projects do not develop an explicit causal analysis framework. Nevertheless, such a framework is helpful in clarifying key interventions and identifying variables needed to assess the extent the project is going to affect. Now, for example, just have a look at this causal analysis framework. Now, this program basically hypothesizes that mothers will breastfeed their infants once they learn about the dangers of unclean water. However, if mothers are not breastfeeding for other reasons, such as cultural norms or working away from home, then different interventions are needed. So, in effect, the monitoring and evaluation system tests the hypothesis to determine whether the project's intervention and outputs contributed to the desired outcomes. The selection of the problems to address and the appropriate interventions should be grounded in research findings and program experience in similar settings. Causal analysis is useful to examine cause and effect relationship and identify community needs for which to formulate a working hypothesis. Okay, so this is a very important example that you can understand. Let's have a look at this. Like, mothers do not know that unclean water will make infants sick. If mothers are aware of the dangers of unclean water, then intervention is educate mothers about the dangers of unclean water. Alright, so you can also formulate such kind of causal analysis for your own projects. The next important component is the log frame or logical framework. Basically, the logical framework shows the conceptual foundation upon which the project's monitoring and evaluation system is built. It is a matrix that specifies what the project is intended to achieve, like what are its objectives, and how is that objective going to be achieved. So, what are the indicators? For this purpose, it is essential to understand the differences between the project inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And I've already covered this point that when we say inputs, so inputs would mean the activities and resources. And the outputs, I've already discussed, is the outcomes and impacts, the difference between these three. Now, here is an example. Now, a clear understanding of the log frame hierarchy of objectives is essential basically for monitoring and evaluation planning. And ultimately, it will inform the key question that will guide the evaluation of project process and impact. So, if you look at the project objectives, so at the bottom we have inputs, okay? Then activities, outputs. So these are basically the resources. These are the activities, the outputs. So these two together basically makes the input. So outputs, these are the outputs, these are the outcomes, and the goal. So it is, the goal means here the impact. So what is the impact? So I've already discussed the impact. So let's just discuss this example first. So polio immunization booklets, trainer facilities, and so on, all these things would go into inputs. And how these inputs are going to be involved? So translation of polio immunization booklets, this is one of the activity which will take place during this project. Now for this input, what is the indicator as I discussed this? So the indicator is number of polio immunization booklets printed. How many booklets are you going to get the prints of? And how can you verify? So the warehouse inventory will show you the exact number that you have printed of the polio immunization booklet. So this is one of the evaluation technique that you can adopt. Now let's have a look at the outputs. So polio immunization awareness workshop and people participation. So what is the indicator of this output? So the number of caretakers participating in polio, for example 10, 20, whatever the number you want to train. So the number of caretakers participating in polio immunization awareness workshop. And how can you verify? Workshop attendance and focus group interviews. The outcomes: increase immunization of children less than 1 year old in target communities, and the outcome indicator will be percent of children under 1 year who are fully immunized for polio immunization coverage. And how can you verify? Is household survey and vaccine records. Now, as I said, you can make some of the assumptions that you want. So the assumption here is that community acceptance of the polio vaccine. Assuming that the community will accept the polio vaccine, therefore this outcome is going to be achieved under such circumstances, right? And similarly, the impact, which is a more long-term goal, so improve the health in target communities in Matara district, for example, this is the area in Sri Lanka, by reducing the incidence of polio. And this is the indicator, and how can you verify it? And security, political situation remains stable for country and allows for project implementation. These are the assumptions that are being made. Alright, now so far we covered 2 components, and the rest of the 2 components are going to be covered in the next video. So I'll see you in the next video.